On this video, I would like to continue the third speech of Elihu. And so I'm picking it up at chapter 35, and we're going to continue to look at the grammatical analysis of the text, along with an understanding of or a brief commentary as well. So we are reading the Hebrew, and we'll be going on then from the Hebrew text. Let me just say a word about this particular chapter. Elihu continues seeking to refute Job for multiplying words without proper knowledge. And so we begin at verse 1. Vaya'an Elihu Vayomer. That is, and Elihu answered and said. Ya'an is from the root anan, meaning to answer. And it's how imperfect third masculine singular from anan. I'm going to close this blind. It's too bright, I think. So let me see if this might be a little bit better. So let me just continue now where I had left off, and that is at the verb vaya'an from na, a lamed hey verb, a cow imperfect third masculine singular from na. So Elihu answered, Vayomer. Vayomer is from Amar. It is the cow imperfect third masculine singular from Amar with a vav consecutive. So Elihu answered and said, Hazot hashafta lemishpat, amarta sidki me'el. That is, do you think that this is right, or you're right, that you say, I am righteous from God, or I guess we could say even more righteous than God, from God. And so as we look at this, hashafta is from the root hashav, to think, a cow perfect second masculine singular from hashav. So do you think this to be right, or you're right? Or do you say amarta, again, cow imperfect second masculine singular, that I am righteous, or that my righteousness is more than God? So in verse 2, as we continue the thought here, Elihu asked Job if he thinks that he is to be placed in the position of being vindicated simply because he claims to be righteous before God. And so, do you say, I am righteous from God? Maybe that's the way it should be rendered, meaning before God, not more than God, but from God. And then verse 3, Ki tomar ma yiskon lak ma o'il mehatati. For that you say, what use or what advantage will it be for you, and what can I profit if I had sinned, or from my sin? Tomar is the cow imperfect second masculine singular from amar. If you say, basically, what advantage or what use is it unto you? Yiskon from sakan, to be of use or to be of advantage. And what profit? Ma o il al, to profit. It is a hifil imperfect first common singular from uh, ya'al, to profit. So what more, or what, I guess we could say, what more from ya'al than if I had sinned, more than if I had sinned, or literally from my sin. Elihu is restating a former question raised by Job. We saw this in chapter 34, verse 9. Asking the prophet of leading a righteous life. Since he is being so severely afflicted, he wonders what difference it makes whether he has sinned or not. In other words, uh, basically, I'm suffering, and it doesn't matter whether I've sinned or not. Uh, what profit is there, uh, even if I had sinned, which he has claimed that he hasn't? And so in verse 4, Ani asivcha milin va'et re'echa imak. Ashivacha, that is, if I is emphatic here, ani, if I, ashivacha, if I returned a word or answered a word in return, asha is from the root to bring back an answer, a hifil imperfect first common singular, followed by the pronominal suffix in the ha, second masculine singular. So if I caused again or returned a word, and your companions, or I will return a word, excuse me, I will return or give a word, and your companions with you. So basically, we're going to now look at what Elihu is implying in verse 4. What he's really saying here is, in his speech, he will answer both Job and his friends with a true answer to Job's dilemma, as he is going to return a word. So then we continue in verse 5. Habeit shamayim ura'eh v'shur shechakim gavahu mimecha. Look to the heavens and see. Habeit is from the root nabat, a peinun root, and here we have a hifil imperative masculine singular, han bait becoming habeit, with the doubling of the bait by the assimilation of the noon of the first radical of the root. So look unto the heavens and see. Ura'eh from ra'ah, a cow imperative masculine singular from ra'ah, and v'shur, and look to the sky, shechakim. Shur is another imperative, cow imperative masculine singular. So look to the skies, gavahu mimecha, which are higher than you. Gavahu is a cow, perfect third common plural from uh, gava. So look to the clouds, which are higher than you. And so what Elihu is saying here is he wants to show the transcendence of God. And this will now continue, which is higher than man's wickedness. This is his point. And so we continue in verse 6 down to verse 8. Im chatata ma tif'al bo, v'rabu fesha'echa ma ta'aseh lo. If you have sinned, what do you do against him? Or what do you do against him? I guess we could render it. If you have sinned, chatata is the cow perfect second masculine singular from chata, rabu, and if your transgressions are multiplied. Rabu is from rabab, a cow perfect third common plural from rabab, a double ayin root. If your transgressions are multiplied, what do you do unto him? Ma ta'aselo, from asa, the cow imperfect second masculine singular from asa. What do you do to him? And then we will go on. I'll finish up verse 8 and then summarize the thought here. Im sadakta ma titen lo. If you are righteous, what do you give to him? Sadakta is the cow perfect second masculine singular from sadak. What do you titain? What do you give to him? A pay noon verb from natan, a tintain becoming titain, where the noon, first radical of the root, has assimilated by progressive assimilation into the top. So if you be righteous, what do you give to him? Or, oh, ma miyadacha yakach, or what do you receive from, or what receives he, I should say, from your hand? Yakach is the cow imperfect third masculine singular from lakach, where the lamed has assimilated into the kol. So what do you receive from him then is the thought here. If you are righteous, what do you give to him? Or what do you receive from, or what does he receive from your hand? And then verse 8, Le'ish kamocha reshecha, your wickedness concerns your wickedness, or does your wickedness concern a man as you are, or to a man as yourself is your wickedness? And then uleven adam sitkatecha, and your righteousness, a son of man, and to a son of man your righteousness. And as we look at these verses 5 to 8, Elihu emphasizes the transcendence of God. Being higher than the skies, God is not touched by man's wickedness, righteousness, seems to be the thought. It is not for a personal reason, therefore, that God afflicts a man, since his actions relate only to the man himself. Thus, it is not out of self-interest that God runs his universe, but out of his own sovereign decree of justice. This seems, to my understanding, to be the basic argument of Elihu in an effort on his part to vindicate God's dealings with Job's attack. Now, in verses 9 to 16, Elihu continues, although these sufferings cry out their prayers, argues Elihu, they are not heard because they cry to God not to worship and adore him, but only for relief. They only want God to be a momentary fire escape. Seems to be the flow of thought in verses 6 to 19, or excuse me, verses 9 to 16, I should say. So we pick up at verse 9 then. Merov ashukim yaziku. From the multitude of oppressions, they cry out. Yaziku is a Hiphil imperfect third masculine plural from za'ak, to cry out. Notice the AI thematic vowel pattern, the pas, ak, the hirik, yod, indicating a Hiphil imperfect. And yeshavu mizaroa rabim. That is, they cry by reason or from the arm of the, like they cry for help because of the arm or from the arm uh, of the mighty one. I'm sorry, they cry for help from the arm of the mighty ones. So in verse 9, because of the magnitude of affliction and the afflictions that one experiences, man cries out for relief, he seems to be saying. But then in verse 10, Velo amar aye Eloah osai. But he does not say, where is God, my maker? Velo amar, amar is the cow perfect third masculine singular from amar. He does not say, where is God, osai, the one who made me. From asa, to make, a cow participle masculine singular with the pronominal suffix, the I, first common singular. Notain zemirot balayla, who gives songs in the night. Notain is another cow participle masculine singular from Natan. While those afflicted cry for relief, they often do not cry to God. It is to God that they should cry, who often fills the sufferer with rapture that burst instinctively into songs of praise. And I'm making a quote from Peake here at this point. So then in verse 11, we continue, Malafenu mebah hamot aretz ume'of hashemayim yechachamenu. That is, who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth and makes us wiser than the fowls of the heaven. Malafenu is from the root alaf. That basically means to teach. We're looking here at a Hiphil participle masculine singular from alaf. Notice the mem prefix in the a tseri vowel pattern, who teaches, indicative of a Hiphil participial form, who teaches us, nu is your pronominal suffix, first common plural, who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth and more than the fowls of heaven, he makes us wise. Yechachamenu. This is from chacham, to be wise. We have a PL imperfect third masculine singular from chacham, followed by the pronominal suffix, first common plural, who makes us, we could say, wiser than, a comparative use of the mem here, than the fowls of heaven. So in verse 11, unlike beasts and birds, excuse me just a moment. Excuse me. Unlike birds and beasts, God teaches man about himself. They are wiser than the fowls of heaven. Instead of simply crying out, though, as animals afflicted, as animals afflicted instinctively would do, man would cry out to God in suffering as his rock and trust, showing again the differentiation between man and the beast here. And so in verses 12 to 13, the text then continues. Sham sid aku velo ya'anem. They cry, but none gives answer. Mipnei ga'on ra'im. Because of the pride of evil people or evil men understood. There they cry. It's aku is from sa'ak, to cry, a cow imperfect, third masculine plural from sa'ak, but there is no answer. He does not answer. Ya'aneh from ana, cow imperfect, third masculine singular from ana, but none gives answer because of the pride of evil men. And then he continues in verse 13, Af shav lo yishma el. Is surely God will not hear vanity. V'shadai lo yeshurena. That is, neither will the Almighty, or the Almighty will not see or will not regard it. Notice here, Yishma is from Shema, Yishma I should say, cow imperfect, third masculine singular from Shema, nor will the Almighty guard it. Yeshurenu from Shur, to regard, the cow imperfect, third masculine singular, with the pronominal suffix, third feminine singular, in the ah. And so the thought here seems to be in verses 12 and 13. When man cries unto God only for relief and still has pride in his heart, Elihu seems to be arguing his cry is not heard. For God will not hear which is vain and lacking real trust in him. So this seems to be Elihu's point. And then we move to verse 14. Afki tomar lo teshurenu. That is, indeed, when you say you cannot see him. Tomar is the cow imperfect, second masculine singular from amar. You will not. The root here is shur, to see, from, and then we have ennu, meaning enhu became ennu, where the final hey of the third masculine singular pronominal suffix, by reverse assimilation, went back into the noon. So indeed, when you say you cannot see him, this is again the cow imperfect, second masculine singular from shur. And din lefanav, Utecholel lo. And that is, and the cause is before him. The cause is before him. Therefore, wait, may you or will you wait for him? The root here is hul, which means to wait expectantly or to wait. A polel imperfect, second masculine singular from hul. Therefore, wait expectantly for him. Uh, if this is true, if those who cry to God in pride, then how much more is this true of Job, who says that he cannot see God? While his cause has been presented before him, and while he has waited on God, Job has argued that God doesn't respond. Such attitude implies Elihu is like the cry of prideful men. It does not invoke a response from God. So Elihu is not too helpful to Job at this point at all. And so now we move to verse 15. Va'ata ki ayin pakad apo. For now, is it for nothing that he punishes in his anger? Pakad means to punish, cow perfect, third masculine singular from pakad, and apo in his anger, and velo yada bipash ma'od. And does he not know concerning the, does he not have full knowledge against or about the arrogance or the folly that you're showing, meaning folly here? And now, is it for naught that he punishes anger? Is it for nothing, pagad, that he punishes with his anger? And has he not full knowledge of arrogance, implying Job's arrogance, it seems? And Elihu asks the question that Job has asked: does God punish with his wrath for nothing? Since, as Job has claimed, there seems to be no explainable reason for God's apparent wrath. Also, does not God have full knowledge of man's folly? Elihu is asking. And so finally in verse 16, Va'Eyob hevel yifseh pihu. But Job, folly, found his mouth Job has opened his mouth or opens his mouth in folly. Yifseh from fatzah, to open, the cow imperfect third masculine singular from fatzah. Job has opened his mouth in vanity or folly, and then bibli datmilin yakbir. And without knowledge, he has multiplied or made many words without knowledge. Yakbir is from kabir, meaning to make many. It's the Hifil imperfect third masculine singular from kabar, to make many. And so as we conclude this verse, Elihu is saying the answer is that Job does not have knowledge of man's folly, and hence Job simply opened his mouth to utter vanity, and his words are spoken without knowledge. So as I look at this chapter, basically, Elihu is just continuing to refute Job for multiplying words without proper knowledge. And furthermore, although people suffer, they cry out, Elihu has argued, they are not heard because they cry to God not really to worship him and adore him, but only for relief. They only want God to give them a momentary type of relief. And so he's accusing Job of this, and in his attack of God, opening his mouth to utter folly and words that do not have knowledge accompanying them.